afternoon and welcome to Chatbox with Sam. Today's guest is actor, producer and director is Anthony Snow. Welcome to the show, Anthony. How are you?
I'm well, Samantha. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's an honour, and I was just checking out your reel, and that was quite interesting as well. Anthony, if you were to encourage the younger generation, what would be the main focus?
If you want to go into this business, you better go into it for the right reasons, and it's not about the money. So if you're all about the money, this is not the business for you. I have worked many years in this business, and it's really for the love of my craft. And that's what you have to do because that's what sustains you throughout your lifetime, throughout your career lifetime. So if you're not in it for the right reasons, if you don't fully feel like you have something to give, something to create, whether you're an actor, you're a writer, you're a director, you're a producer, it doesn't matter what your job title is, but you have to love what you do. And if you love what you do, it doesn't seem like a lot of work. It's always work and it's a hard business, but the love of what you do is what sustains you through a lifetime, a career lifetime. So that's what I would say. If you really want to go into this business, do it for the right reasons. It's because you love whatever it is you want to do. And that's what sustains you.
That's a really great answer because it's good advice. It's good sound advice. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be famous.
Yeah.
And they don't
Yeah.
realize how difficult it is in the industry. You know, it's not going to be fame and fortune. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of
It's
hours. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of hard work and a lot of luck too.
Yes.
It's not always the best actor that makes it to the top. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people across the spectrum of acting skills and lengths of career and stuff that have made it. It's not a simple formula, and it definitely just requires the love of your career, whatever it is you want to do in the field,
Yeah.
and the sustainability.
Right. And Anthony, what inspired you into this career?
I was in college at the time. I was getting my undergrad degree in nuclear medicine, not theater, of all things. And Rocky Four came into town. I was going to school at UNLV, which is the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and they were filming Rocky Four downtown at the MGM on the Strip. And my friend, I was in a band at the time. I had started in music when I was in fourth grade, so I had learned music, and I was in a jazz band, and the leader of the jazz band was Jimmy Walker. So for those people that were around in the 70s, he had a hit sitcom show called Good Times. So he was a stand-up comedian that everybody knew in the 70s and 80s. And he was living in Las Vegas at the time. He had a jazz band. He asked me to join the band. And that's how I made my first entertainment connection. And when Rocky Four came into town, he said, "Hey Anthony, would you like to go down to the Strip and see Rocky Four, and I'll introduce you to some people and stuff?" And I said, "Sure, I'd love to." And I went down there, and just the grandeur and the spectacle of being on a set that with that's that big, that kind of budget, meeting James Brown, who sang the theme to the movie Living in America,
Mm-hmm.
and Stallone, and it was just I was in awe. And then they asked me if I would be an extra, and I didn't even know what that was, and I said sure. And they put me in a tuxedo and sat ringside for this big scene where he sings. It's the opening, before the big fight, and I was just blown away. And I said, man, I would love to do this for a living. And Jimmy Walker, being the great guy that he is, and he was been in show business for years, he goes, "Don't do it. Trust me, don't do it." Of course, I didn't listen very well.
No.
So as soon as I graduated and I started working, I went to school in San Francisco at the American Conservatory Theater and started
Yes.
taking classes so that I could really learn the craft. So that's what inspired me to get going in this business.
Yes.
And what inspired me to get better was my first official extra job is I worked on an HBO film called The Last of His Tribe, and it starred John Voight, Graham Greene, and it was about the last wild Indian found actually up in your area.
Right.
He's from up there, and it's kind of based on a true story.
Yeah.
And John Voight played the anthropologist, and I got to be an extra on that set. So I crossed in front of John Voight, and they said, okay, back to one, do it again. I did it again, and then all of a sudden I felt this big paw on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it was John Voight who grabbed me, and he cut the scene himself. And he said, let me give you your first lesson in acting. If you're gonna cross, you're crossing for a reason, not just because they told you to walk in front of me and just, schlep over. He said,
right.
He taught me about internal monologue. He says, you're going there for a reason. So think of the reason why you're going there, whether it's meeting somebody, you're going to lunch, you're going to pick up the garbage, whatever you're going to do. And he gives me this whole thing in the middle of the scene, and everybody's quiet. The director doesn't say anything. I'm thinking, I'm going to get fired because we were told not to speak to the stars,
That's
and
it.
Here's John Voight. He just grabbed me and gave me my first acting lesson right then and there.
That's awesome.
And that's how I ended up saying, I got to really learn this craft. And that's why I went to ACT in San Francisco.
And that was and I know you were in a class with Jimmy Walker, but you also, Clyde Barrow, is that the one?
Yeah, we did a remake of Bonnie and Clyde.
Yes.
And we called our film The Barrow Gang because Clyde's name is Clyde Barrow and Bonnie is Bonnie Parker. But it was a more historically accurate version of Bonnie and Clyde because it wasn't just them two. They had 3 or 4 gang members that they ran around with when they pulled these crimes. They weren't always by themselves.
Right.
So that's why it was called The Barrow Gang. Mm-hmm. But that was probably the most fun movie I've ever made because I had to learn so much in pre-production about being Clyde Barrow. The production company actually gave me a copy of the FBI files that they had on Clyde and Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh, awesome.
And they also had to take me to school to learn how to drive the period cars because he drove a 1932 Ford Flathead V8 and it was a double clutch kind of thing. And they had to train me to do that. And then Clyde would rob armories. And that's why he always got away because he would get in these gunfights with the police. The police had their little revolvers and rifles, and he was firing automatic weapons at them. And his favorite was the Browning automatic rifle, which has been used since World War I. Right. So he would shoot himself out of anything. And then, of course, I had to have training to handle these weapons and actually fire a Browning automatic rifle.
Wow.
So that movie I had the most fun in.
Was they heavy, the machines?
Yes, it's very heavy.
Right.
And the gun actually has a tripod that screws at the end of the barrel so that it's meant to be fired from a sitting or lying position.
Wow.
Yeah, it was heavy carrying that gun around and shooting it from the hip. And the only time I shot it in the film, it was, of course, blanks. It wasn't the real 30-06 bullet that goes in them.
Thank God.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, thank God, exactly. So, but it was a lot of fun. I got to do a lot of things that I didn't do in a lot of movies. Being the leading character and having more of a period piece.
Well, I hope people look out for that film because
Yeah, it was fun.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And you were in The Rock?
Yeah. So what I got to do is I played one of the Apache helicopter loadmasters. I put the SEAL team on the chopper, and I got their equipment on board, and that was working with Michael Bay, and that was an interesting story too. He's very precise about what he wants. And we got into a little issue with him and me and the head SEAL team guy, because he used real SEAL team people and real SEAL team ordnance. And I was supposed to be loading their ordnance into the helicopter. And he was like, you got to do it faster, Anthony. You got to do it faster. So I'm literally throwing these bags in when the lieutenant, the head of the SEAL team, came up to me, and he was really polite. And he said, sir, could you please not throw the bags? They have live ordnance in it.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was like, oh, no. And then so it's like I was really careful with it. And then Michael Bay got mad because he was like, hey, I told you to faster. And I said, I think you need to speak to the lieutenant, Mr. Bay, because there's a slight communication thing going on here, and we don't want any explosions.
Yeah, safety first on set.
Safety first on set, absolutely.
Right, yes. One of my favourite films too. I mean, I love The Rock, I love all of them. But Phenomena was filmed in my hometown now, not my original hometown, but
Right,
Phenomenon was filmed at the Shanghai with John Travolta, and you were in
right.
that. Would you like to share your experience, especially for
That
me?
was a
With
wonderful experience. I tell you, everybody on that set was warm and inviting. Even from
yes,
the first day I was there, it was great. I walk on set my first day, and of course, everybody knows who John Travolta is. And he
hmm
comes on the set and he hugs everybody. And then he comes up to me and he looks at me like he realizes that he hasn't met me yet.
hmm
And he puts out his hand and he goes, "Hi, I'm John Travolta." And I said, "I know." Like I was like almost like, I know who you
No
are.
introductions needed.
Yeah, there's no introductions needed, but he was
Yes.
so kind and just so, not all about himself, that we just sat down and we talked, and in between scenes we found out we were both pilots, and he loves
Oh,
to fly. I'm
yes.
a pilot. We started talking about flying planes, and he's just a wonderful man. He really was super kind and really showed me, what humility is all about.
Oh, yeah, he seems a kind gentleman. I'm trying to think of the other guy's name. He's so talented. The guy that he worked with.
Forrest Whitaker.
Yes.
Forrest Whitaker was on that picture. The guy who played Data on Star Trek was in that picture.
hmm
In fact, I even got to stand in for him because we were built, the
The
same
same.
way. So yeah, yeah, yeah. Brent Spiner is his name, and so, but yeah, they were great. Robert Duvall was in the movie. Kara Sedgwick was. It was a great film. They were all such nice people, and very welcoming, and very approachable. You know,
Oh,
Bicentennial Man. It was kind of a futuristic film.
yes.
That's how I got to meet Robin Williams, the late Robin
Oh,
Williams,
bless him.
yeah, that was a special moment too, to say I actually met the man. He It was about, it's set in the future, and he played a house robot, basically, from the future, and he was trying to learn human emotions and stuff from the creator and his children. They brought him home to work in their home, and it was such a interesting film. And the greatest thing about it was I got to meet Robin Williams, and he was so funny. I mean, even when the cameras aren't rolling, he's constantly like doing bits. He'll pick up a prop,
Improv.
and yes, it was amazing the way his brain worked. He was so quick and so fast, and I was just in awe. And I said, "Man, I'm going to start taking some improv classes because this guy's brilliant." So,
Yes.
anyway, he inspired me that way, in order to take improv and work on just, coming up with something from nothing. And he was brilliant. He truly was brilliant, and a very, very kind man.
You were in The Running Wild and
Oh yeah, with Sharon Stone. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that was a good piece. Actually, that was filmed in Northern California too, in a little town of Petaluma.
Oh.
That was an interesting film because I got to play the reason that the whole film was made, because it's about a guy who's a drunk and he crashes and kills himself, and the farm goes into foreclosure, and all these beautiful horses that they were taking care of has to be auctioned off. And
Oh.
Sharon Stone's kind of like the evil person who wants to get these horses for all the wrong reasons, and
Right.
my widow wife is left trying to fight for the horses and for the animal rights and stuff like that. So it's a
Oh.
great film. It's a great film.
With every hero, there's a villain.
There has to be
Right.
antagonist, protagonist, right? So
Absolutely. Is there any part that you've played where you see your own persona within that casting part?
I try, the way I approach it and the way I work is that I try to find a piece of me in every character that I play.
Right.
So I never, you're always told from the beginning of class when you study acting, is you can never judge a character. It's always, there's part of you in that character, and whether he's a villain or an alcoholic or whatever, there's a piece of you in that person, and you got to find that piece and relate
hmm
to that person, and never judge the character that you're playing.
Right.
So I try to find a lot. I try to find myself in all my characters.
That's awesome.
So Whenever I play a father, though, it just seems that it fits me the best, which is funny because I don't have any children. But
Oh,
I always wanted children. So every
oh,
time I get to play a father role, I seem to feel that more, my heart, you know.
oh,
So that would be the kind of role that, if that's the question you're asking, it would, anytime I play a father, it's special to me.
oh, that's lovely. How has music influenced your life?
I love music. I mean, I listened to the music on the radio since I was little. I mean, I always had an AM transistor radio. I would listen to like it was always usually like top 40 stuff. And then, of course, as I got older, I started branching out into the different genres of music and listening. But I still I enjoy classical music. I used to play in an orchestra, so I love classical music.
And what did
As
you?
you know, I was in
Sorry.
the jazz band, so
Yes.
I listened to the jazz greats, and then of course I grew up in the '70s, so I was '70s rock and roll and more pop stuff for me. So I enjoy that. So I listen to all kind of different things, and on my TV I go to the music program station, and I'll flip. I'll go to soft jazz,
Yeah.
and then I'll go to rock, then I'll go to pop, then I'll go to R&B or soul, because I grew up listening to a lot of Motown in the
Right.
East Bay, where I grew up in San Francisco East Bay.
Yes.
So it's great. So everything from Smokey Robinson to Miles Davis to Def Leppard,
Oh, I love Def Leppard.
and then Bach. So
Yes,
it's yeah.
I'm the
So
same way. So do you play? What instruments do you play, Anthony?
I wanted to play the electric bass because I thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Well, the teacher wouldn't let me play the electric bass, but he says, I'll keep you in bass clef. So he gave me a trombone.
Right.
So you could tell how sexy that was. So, which is why I ended up playing a lot of New Orleans jazz and,
Yes.
anything in it with a horn section, that
Right.
I could play, like Chicago, or, I played a lot of music like that. And then, and that's how I did end up going into jazz, because there just wasn't a lot of trombone pieces for rock and roll, or,
No.
you know, so that's what it was. So,
That's awesome. I know. I used to play the trumpet. So, that's great. And do you sing?
I started in musical theater. So, yeah, I used to, but the pipes are not rusty; they're broken. I mean, they're totally broke.
Yeah, that
I could
happens.
I couldn't probably even sing Happy Birthday right now.
Right.
So it's been so long since I had did any training in voice, in vocals,
Right.
and but I used to do a lot of musical theater. I loved it. I love theater, and that's how I first learned the purest form of the art. Acting is theater. And
Right.
so I was a theater person. I performed in the round. I performed on the regular proscenium stage. I've done musicals. I've done straight plays. I've done comedies, dramas, everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, but that was early on. That was a couple, 2, almost 3 decades ago.
Well, that's awesome. You have a lot of background, so and you're still working in the industry right now, right?
Yeah, I'm still doing it as a producer and actor. And I just signed an LOI earlier this morning for a Western film. So
Nice.
yeah, still doing what I love.
Out of all the charities there are in the world, which one would you choose to advocate for and why?
I there's two that I mostly do. I do several, but mostly I do two, because one, I'm an animal lover, and which
Mm-hmm.
is why I wanted to do that Sharon Stone movie about the horses.
Yes.
So I do a lot of animal welfare charities, and I participate in golf tournaments to raise money for like the local SPCA's or ASPCA, and organizations like that, anything to do with animals. I
Yeah.
raise money. I even volunteered at a Great Pyrenees rescue, you know.
Oh.
So I volunteer, I do charity work for that. And the other thing that I do are veterans. And my father was a veteran. He was in the United States Marine Corps. And so I do a lot of charity work for the Veterans Association. So
Oh, that's very
yeah,
kind of you. Thank
wounded
gosh.
warriors and disabled, veterans of America.
What are your feelings about what transpired since COVID?
You know, it was it was really decimating for the industry. I mean,
Yes.
we totally shut down that first year. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there were productions trying to find places in other parts of the world that would, would allow them to film.
Right.
Hollywood was basically shut down.
Yeah.
In fact, for me, because I have a background in medicine with nuclear medicine, I became a COVID compliance officer when I couldn't work as an actor.
Right.
So that if there was any kind of productions, like big budget productions that couldn't afford all the, PPE equipment, personal protection equipment needed for COVID, because at the time when it first happened, it was really, really strict rules.
Yeah. Well, it
And
was really bad too, though,
it
wasn't
was
it?
really bad. Yeah. And there
Mm.
were a lot of people, I
Dying.
lost people from COVID.
Yeah.
Um, it was horrible. So I understand it, and it was just a terrible thing that happened with the COVID.
Yeah.
But I used my medical background to become a COVID compliance officer so that I could still help people and
Yeah.
work, on productions and stuff. So
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think the new variants that are coming out are a lot weaker because they're breaking up they're breaking up the
right,
strains
because
and
viruses,
yeah,
as
they
they,
change.
yeah, as they mutate, they're supposed to get weaker. That's the
Yeah.
natural order of things. At every time that they split off and mutate, that they become weaker. Um, this one was kind of which lends it to, if you believe it was lab created, is that it went from the first version of this COVID virus to the Delta variant, which really was it really changed a lot of people. A lot of people got seriously sick. A lot of people died when they had to go on a ventilator. They couldn't breathe.
Mm.
And that Delta variant was horrible, as opposed to like Omicron, the Omicron variant,
Mm.
which is more like, sneezy, like your runny nose, you
Yeah,
got like
that's
a
what I
headache.
had. I had the
Yeah,
Omicron. Yeah,
yeah.
I
So
was okay. I was just tired.
yeah. You just get tired, and
Yeah,
you could still forge on. With Delta, it was no
really bad.
bueno, as we say.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
not,
Well,
yeah, it was not good.
the first one that came out that hit New York and the big places, when it obviously came in on the ships, that's where a lot of it probably came from. That was the killer. But
Yeah,
now it's getting weaker and weaker, and hopefully now people when they get vaccinated in this, or if they're not, some people can't get vaccinated.
right.
But
Some people
even
got,
with
yeah.
that, they'll get over it. I think it's getting weaker.
I think I'm hoping and praying we're at the end of this thing, and that
Yes,
everybody can go on with their lives and back to normal, and
yeah, or the
you
new
know
normal.
the new normal, whatever that is. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. you
Yeah,
know
absolutely. Well, thank you for being so honest regarding that. And it was very interesting to learn about your medical background and how you became the COVID compliance officers, because obviously they're very required on set. And many people that I spoke to, many friends in the industry, I have a lot of friends, and they did suffer the most. Some of them even lost their homes. They couldn't work. There was no work.
there's no work.
There was
Yeah,
no
no.
other job. Some of them are even doing construction work and stuff like that. Totally off base to their normal acting careers.
Right.
Anything to survive. So, and it really did affect them. And people have to realise that in the industry, the rules are a lot stricter there than the average grocery store. So
Absolutely.
when they say, "Oh, people are
Absolutely.
still acting," yeah, but the rules are very strict on
Yep.
set,
They very
testings,
are.
and yeah.
Yep.
So
Testings. We had daily testings for a while.
yes,
We had to segregate between Zone A, Zone B, and Zone
mm,
C, and people couldn't just openly pass between those areas. And they really tried to protect the cast and the people that
yeah,
were in front of the camera, because they're not acting with masks on. So
right,
when they unmasked, they had to make sure that there was nobody on set that was positive,
hmm,
or had exerted any kind of feelings. Symptoms, the
right.
symptoms of COVID. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of money involved. If someone has COVID, it's shut down, and then that could be like $250,000 in production up the, you
Oh
know,
yeah,
you know.
the problem with the COVID, the producers inherited kind of like a 25% increase in budget because
Hmm.
of the testing and the PPE equipment and the things they had to pay for, and increased the budget by 25%. That's a
Right.
lot of money when you're talking millions of dollars.
It is. It is.
Mom and dad are total opposites. Politically, my mom's a Democrat, my dad's a Republican. My mom's right-handed, my dad's left-handed. My dad likes to go fishing, my mom can't stand the smell of fish. So it's like, but what made it work is that they respected each other.
What?
And I think that's what this world needs when it comes to the different opinions. Yes, we can all have difference of opinions. You don't have to hate somebody just because their opinion isn't exactly the same as yours. It's what makes the world go round. And if people just need to get back to respecting each other. And I think we've lost a lot of that with all the gaslighting going on now, politically, with the coronavirus, vaxxed, not vaxxed. It's just terrible. And everybody has a right to do what they think is right for them. And we have to respect that. Whether we agree with it or not, it doesn't matter. You just have to respect the other person's opinion, whether you agree with it or not. And I think all this hatred and all this animosity would be greatly diminished if we just got back to respecting one another.
Amen to that. Very well put. And I was just having a conversation with Mr. Richard Dreyfuss, and he asked me a question because I was talking to him regarding something, and he said, "We or they?" And I went, "Excuse me?" He said, "We or they?" I said, "We," because they will be left behind, And he went,
Yeah.
"We," because we are all one. We are all we. We are all one. It should be unity.
Should be like that phrase. We're all one because we're all part of one human race.
Right. Is there anything that no one has asked you in an interview that you would have liked them to ask you?
I don't think so. Most people are very thorough. You're very thorough. So
Thank you.
It's like, those were great questions you asked. And it's like, yeah, it was very refreshing to say about my history and stuff. And I remember those memories fondly, the people I worked with and the films I've been on. And is there a question nobody's asked me
that you would have liked
that I would like to know? Yeah. I can't think of one at the moment.
That's okay.
I can't think of one.
There's no right answers on this show, and
right.
I do not censor the person at all.
As you can tell from me, I'm pretty open. I didn't even know what questions you were going to ask me.
No.
I really didn't care because I'm an honest person and I answered.
You did. You answered every single question, yes, and it was fantastic. I love the way you answered. It's refreshing. And I love the trombone story too. I can't imagine you singing it. I know.
Nothing like that sexy trombone, right, Samantha?
I know. Every single piece of music and every single instrument, even a voice, is it's all part of a puzzle. It's all part of the art.
It is.
Every single
piece fits.
Yes, every single piece fits. It certainly does, sir. So what are your favourite hobbies? What do you do? What's your go-to when you're not doing anything else?
Because I do so much charity, I usually do some kind of golf tournament. I'm usually involved with some golf tournament. And so I like to golf because, I just chase the little ball around and, hit it wherever and just have fun,
Let me tell you this. I might leave this in. I don't know. I'll think about it. But when I was younger, I'm ridiculous, of course. I wasn't wise and mature like I am now. So
None of us were.
Someone invited me onto a golf course, which I didn't even know how to play golf. I was young. So I was in the golf cart. So I thought it'd be really fun I didn't know where you could go and where you couldn't go. So I went high speed on top of a hill, singing the Benny Hill song. I got thrown out.
Oh, yes.
I was thrown off the course. You must leave. I said, okay. I don't think he was impressed with the Benny Hill song. I was going,
I remember watching Benny Hill growing up, and I was here in the States. Oh my gosh, I remember Benny Hill so fun. He was so funny. Oh, we would laugh and laugh. He was great.
I know, but I thought Benny Hill was very fitting.
Yeah. Why not?
My humour. And let's let the viewers know how they can reach you on social media. If you'd like to give your handle for Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, it's all.
LinkedIn.
I'm on all of them basically. Anthony A. Snow. It's just my name. and that's where you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Um, I'm on a lot of business sites too for the industry, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
Stage 32, Alignable, those kinds of things. But the main ones are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, I guess.
And I know your love of writers, but apart from that, is there any last words that you'd like to share regarding your feelings for the writers and what you'd like to share with the viewers?
Yeah, I've been in this business a long time. So I've been an actor, a producer, a director. I've helped out on sets, scripts, everything. The one thing I never did though is write. And writers, I hold a very high place in my heart for writers because they're the ones that take words and make them meaningful. Without them, there's no story. Without them, there's no character. I can't do what I do unless a writer puts it on paper and gives me the guidelines for what I'm supposed to be. So when I memorize scripts, just like in theater, I do it word for word. In television, they want you to do it word for word. In film, they let you, put it into your words as long as you don't change the meaning behind what they were trying to say. But for me, I take a lot of pride in learning every script word for word. And then if they want to change it, that's great. But I never sit there and go, well, wouldn't it be great if he said this and that? Because I feel that's being disrespectful to the writers because I don't have that, I don't have that in me.
Ability, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that ability. So I would never disrespect them like that. I'm not one of those that just ad lib. I know I have a friend actor that loves to ad lib all the time, and I just go, I wouldn't do it, man. I don't think that's good. Just stick to the script, and that's what I believe. That's firmly what I believe.
And have you got any advice for the viewers that are watching this? Any last words? Mm.
Yeah, just when somebody asks you if you're in a band and you say, yeah, I'm in a jazz band, make sure you're not talking to Tom Johnston of the Doobie Brothers. So I was so proud to tell this man that I was in this band and it was hip and happening and we played all over. And then I asked him, I said, are you in a band? He goes, yeah. He goes, I have a band. And I said, what's the name of your band? And he goes, the Doobie Brothers.
And scene.
Duh.
I know. It's like,
Oh, that was funny. My friend took us out on a fishing boat, and I didn't know it was Tom Johnston. It was a friend of my friend who invited me. He also knew Tom Johnston. They lived over in Marin County, and he says, "Hey, you want to go fishing?" I said, "Yeah," and that's how that whole thing happened. I had no clue who he was, and I'm bragging about my band. It was hilarious.
you know what? He probably got a kick out of it.
Oh, he did.
Because you're just
He's a
human being
great
like
guy.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy. We had a lot of fun with that. I tell that story to everybody. It's like, oh yeah, the time I tried to tell Tom Johnson that I was in a band.
I know. I'm so glad you shared that. We've actually had a funny. I like to always finish with a funny. So it makes someone laugh and they'll remember you.
Yeah. Well, I hope they remember me, and I know they're going to remember you because you are an excellent host, Samantha. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for the invite. I truly appreciate it.
And thank you so much. It's been an honour and a pleasure to talk with you, Anthony, and you have a wonderful day.
You do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.